Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all doing good today. I'm excited about the application security fails. I want to preface this entire presentation. You may be a little disappointed. This is not a fail army video. Nobody will be hit with a firecracker. Nobody will fall off of a building, and I don't believe that anybody will break a bone today. So if that was what you're looking for, this is the wrong presentation. But we're going to do 4 case studies. We're going to discuss 4 applications, vulnerabilities that we've run into multiple times and why that's a fail and how to fix it. I am really excited to be able to say, though, that we have a special guest today. I'm not sure you qualify as a special guest, though. What do you think?
I don't know.
So Jason Gillam, one of the principal consultants here at Secure Ideas, actually drove into the office yesterday. Drove into the office. That sounded more violent than it was.
I drove to the office.
Drove to the office. Came down to Jacksonville to hang out for a couple days, meet with some people here. And since he was here, I said, hey, guess what? You're doing a webcast with me. So we will we will point out that he has seen the slides once. This is a test of how well he can think on his feet.
They're very pretty slides, by the way.
They're beautiful slides. We're excited. Well, okay, I shouldn't say we. I'm excited. We just got a new PowerPoint template that we're using. This is only the 2nd presentation we've used it for. Probably nobody in the audience cares, but I'm excited that this is out there. For the people who are curious, this is a successful Fiverr gig. so let's get started really quick. That was weird. There we go. For the people who don't know, I'm the founder and CEO of Secure Ideas. I'm an IONS faculty member. IONS is they're a good organization. I enjoy working with them.
Yes.
They do the decision support, they do consulting, stuff like that, and we go through there. I'm also a course author and instructor. We do a lot of training, which is good. As a matter of fact, we just, about 20 minutes ago, made the decision that we're about to schedule a public class in Jacksonville on web pen testing. Yeah, almost said mobile, and I don't want to do the mobile class.
Yeah.
And I do want to throw out there about training, and we're trying to get the word out without making it look like marketing for us. We don't want it to be. We do provide free training to veterans. So if you know any vets that are looking for training, have them email us or come out to our website, and we'll give them that information on how to get that. I'm an open source project lead, and I'm a member of the 501st. For the people who don't know, it's, according to my wife, the nerdiest thing I've ever done.
Not true.
So that's me. We'll talk about Gillam next. Or you'll talk.
Oh, you want me to talk about me? Hey,
why is
it
that
keeps
switching?
going.
Oh.
Do you have it like automatically moving forward on you?
No, I don't think so. That was weird.
All right. So hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm kind of across the table from Kevin. I'm a principal security consultant here at Secure Ideas. Also an IONS faculty member, new on the faculty, just a few months. I'm like the new guy, I think, on the faculty.
He's the IANS FNG.
So I come from a little bit of a different background compared to a lot of pen testers. I did years and years of software development first, and then architecture, and then I got into security, and now I work for Kevin. So it's I don't know how that happened. It just did. It just did. So yeah, I really enjoy doing the hacking thing. I actually still do some software development now, but it's always, instead of just building stuff, it's building things to break things. So that's always a fun thing to do. So I've done a little bit of open source myself, involved in a number of projects, and also authored some Burp plugins. And in my spare time, because we have so much of that.
I was going to say, you have spare time? I'll have to fix that.
Yeah. Runner, musician, play the piano.
I was going to say, what instruments do you play?
Yeah,
just the piano?
Well, I play the piano, and I'm trying really hard to learn the electric bass, but I just haven't had enough time to do that. So that time.
What about ukulele?
No, I haven't learned the ukulele.
Okay, sorry.
But I think that maybe that will be on my list for the future.
Okay,
maybe a little bit more portable than electric bass. So.
A little bit.
Or piano, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a home brewer, which, yeah, depending on who you are, that might be important to you too. So.
Yeah, I can see that. So we're going to talk about application security, obviously. It's a big topic here at Secure Ideas. We do a lot of app testing, mobile, IoT. IoT really irritates me. And I know I've said this before, right? It's the Internet of Things. It's always been the Internet of Things. But web apps, everything else like that. Now, today, the fails we're going to talk about, all four of them are web app fails.
They're all web app fails. Yeah.
But these are vulnerabilities that can be found in any type of application. And you know, the first couple slides, just really introductory, right? We know security is important. At least I hope we do, right? If you're on this webcast and you don't think security is important, I guess you're not paying attention, or we don't know how you got onto this webcast. But right, there's tons of attacks going on. You know, I was fascinated by it just the other day. I saw the Wendy's breach. They were talking about Wendy's, the fast food chain, and they were saying that it's going to be bigger than Target.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I'm repeating a headline.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and I'm curious as to why they believe that's going to be bigger than Target. You know, it's one of those things. And I will say that, you know, Target did name themselves after something people shoot at, so
exactly.
they kind of requested it. Hack us.
Yeah, I
no,
don't see people shooting at Wendy's, so.
No. Even though the commercials are annoying.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But you know, and one of the things that we find is, you know, as we talk to people and everything else like that is, you know, are we doing enough? Are we doing the right thing? And I know that I've ranted about this a lot. Gillam's put up with hearing it too often. He's going to have to hear it again. Right, is that I find that so often when we discuss the vulnerabilities with people, when we sit down and say, hey, we tested your app and this is what we found, in almost every case where there was a problem that was significant, there was also a lack of understanding. Right?
Yes.
I can't think of any time that I've done a pen test where I left the debrief or the conversations about it that I thought, man, that guy was negligent. That guy was just a moron. Okay, I have thought that. But I've never thought, man, that person purposely didn't pay attention to security.
Right.
It was almost always, if not always, they didn't understand what caused the issue. What was the problem, right? It was more of a, oh, I didn't know it worked that way. You know, in that.
But maybe heard the term before, but
Yep.
weren't really sure exactly why it was really that bad.
Yeah. I still remember the time that I always make the joke when we talk about blind SQL injection that it's SQL injection with your eyes closed.
Yes.
And it's a dumb joke, but I actually had somebody in the class that didn't really understand that it was a joke, right? Because they didn't know what it was, right? So we find that a lot of times these fails are really just the person didn't understand what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, the web, same exact thing, right? I don't think we have to tell anybody on this call, this webcast, that the web is important. I don't think we need to tell you that you have web applications. So, you know, but we really need to think about how we're protecting it. We need to understand, like I said already, you know, how the flaws work, what they are, and we also need to understand what we're looking for. Like, are you monitoring this kind of stuff? Are you looking for these flaws? Are you even testing? You know, and that's where we start to see problems. So let's dig into the meat, like the stuff that you guys are actually here for, right? We're going to talk about scenario one. I did say it wrong.
Scenario.
I interchangeably.
Tomato type of thing out here.
Yeah, and the worst part is I say it both ways, scenario and scenario, and I can't, like, my brain can't decide which one it likes better. So scenario number one. What we're going to talk about is this flaw. Each of the flaws are going to be treated the same way. We're going to give you a setup, what it was. We're going to talk about what the issue is, how we found it, things like that, and then we're going to talk a little bit about potential solutions. So this first one, this was a fun one. This was a casino, and I think everybody wants to hack a casino at some point. Right?
Yeah, that'd be pretty well, as long as you have permission.
Yeah. No, I would argue that everybody wants to. Whether they do or not involves permission. You know, as somebody who spent most of the week last week in Vegas, yeah, I would have loved to hack some of that stuff. Just, oh man, the cigarette smoke was driving me crazy. But in this case, we had permission, right? And we're testing a casino, and we found an app that was available that was for player rewards, player membership.
Like a points program?
Yeah, a points program. Like, hey, I came and I gave you lots of money and I lost it, and so give me a free drink or a steak. And this application, it was an interesting app. It was actually Flash based.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wasn't there for this one, by the way. So.
Yeah, so I'm
So Kevin's telling me the story for the first time now.
Remember when I said he's seen the slides once? That doesn't mean I explained the slides. But it was a Flash application that talked to a back-end application. That sounded dumb, but you know what I mean, like flashing the client, talking to a server application.
Right.
And you had to authenticate. So the vulnerability was not available unauthenticated, so that's good.
That's a good thing.
Right. But on the negative side, anybody could sign up. Right. You didn't have to like go to the casino to sign up. You just go to a web page, say, hey, I'm Bob, and you had a membership. Okay. And one of the things, and I learned this when I was testing this out, I don't gamble at casinos. And there's nothing, if you gamble at the casino, I'm not judging you. Okay, I am. But I just can't walk around a casino and think to myself, man, I'm leaving here with money. Right? It doesn't work that way. But so I never realized this, but your winnings are taxable. I mean, it makes sense. Like when you say it out loud, it's like, duh.
Yeah.
Right? But so because it's taxable, there's a tax document. And it's a win-loss record annual tax form here in the United States.
Because your losses can offset your winnings as well.
Yeah, but they're not tax deductible. They just offset your winnings.
Just offset your winnings.
Right. So if all you do is lose, you don't get money off your taxes.
No. Well, it would be really easy if that were the
case. So what we found is in this membership application, you could actually go in and say, I want to know what my tax record is for the year. Okay? And what happened was you had to authenticate, and you made a request, and this actually added complexity to testing for this because it wasn't just a give me my tax record, right? You had to log in, which sent up the login request. You got authenticated. Then at that point, you made a request for your tax document, but you didn't get your tax document. What you got was a token back. Okay? And then you took the token in a normal request, right? This isn't even the attack. This is just how the normal transaction works. You then took that token and submitted it back up with your user account number, right? Like a 12, okay? Not like Kevin, but your user ID. And so the token and the user ID went up, and a PDF document came back down. You downloaded a PDF document. And that, the flaw was that the PDF document was returned for the user ID without verifying that the person who is authenticated is the person whose document that was. So if you change the user ID, let's say my user ID was 10 and I changed it to 5, I got the tax document for number 5, for person number 5, account number 5. It didn't matter that I was authenticated as person number 10, and it didn't matter that the token I got was for person number 10, right? The token was just a, yes, I authenticated, right? And so that's an authorization bypass.
Yeah.
You know, I
was going to say, and it's a great example of the direct object reference. From if you're looking at the OWASP top 10, you're wondering what a direct object reference is.
That's it.
This is one of those.
Yeah, right. So that's a problem. Now, from an issue. Yeah, whatever. So
I take issue with the way
I do. You need a tissue. And so. Okay, maybe this has been a long day, but so what another problem with this is one, that series of steps you had to go through, whereas like lots of testing, automated testing, stuff like that, they don't understand that I have to send this up, get this response, then send this other thing back up. So that multi-step process throws off a lot of testing.
Yeah.
And then the other part, as the slide says, right, is the result set was a PDF. It's a binary file. Now, it's a binary file that's documented, it's understood, it's standardized, right? So, but the automated tools weren't able, most automated tools, and I say most because I'm sure if I say all, you'll point out this one tool I forgot about.
But Burp Intruder is not going to do this for you.
Neither is AppScan, Hailstorm, or Acunetics, they're not going to detect that PDF has sensitive information in it, right?
Okay.
So in our testing, and the hour there was me because Gillam wasn't there. We were able to write a simple Python program to iterate through, and what the Python program did was it authenticated, it then made the request for the tax document, got the token, and then iterated through all of the user IDs to do that. And the issue was you couldn't reuse the token more than once. I forgot to mention
so
that.
you had to go fetch a new token each time.
Every single time you had to go get a new token, which complex. And then there's a library, and I should have looked it up because I don't remember the name of it. There's a library that I used to actually, when the PDF came down, parsed it to say, there's the text I need, and put that text into, I never hit record.
Huh? Oh, somebody else did.
Luckily, somebody else is recording. Thank you, Donna. So we were able to steal all of that data back down, right? Which is kind of interesting, and we were able to show them that this is a problem. Now, that's all the issue, right? Setup, all that kind of stuff. The solution, there's a couple different things, right? The very first one is these documents should come down via a controller, right? Like some type of application logic should handle delivering the document.
Yes.
Now, in the case of the app I'm talking about, it was handled by a controller, right? We couldn't just access the PDF.
Was it properly authorizing each user?
Exactly. And that's it. You have to verify authorization, and that can be done, hey, you are Kevin, this is Kevin's document, or the token you got is for Kevin's document, only return, right? That kind of stuff. You also, and I didn't mention this in the slide, but another thing that you could detect is one person should not be able to log in over and over and over again and retrieve document after document after document, right? that should have triggered something. Podofolib. You know what? That doesn't sound familiar, but if that one does it too, that's great, right? The one I used wasn't necessarily the best one. It was just the one I used. So thank you very much for sharing one. But so the idea here is, hey, let's look for somebody brute forcing and iterating through all of this kind of stuff.
Log all the things.
Log all the things, exactly. But don't just log it. Look at all the things.
Look at all the logs.
Right? So, and so that was scenario number one, right? Do you have any?
No, that pretty much covers it, I guess. I wasn't there, so you'll have to tell me if that was it.
So let's move on to scenario number two. And by the way, don't hesitate. If you got questions, comments, things like that, throw that into the chat window. We are paying attention to that. Kind of, sort of, yeah. I'm looking. So the second thing is content management issues, right? Lots of organizations have CMSs, right? Mm-hmm. And they push these sites out and use them. This one was an online banking system. It was a credit union out there, right? And they were concerned about their online banking system. That's very, very common, right? Banks, credit unions, whatever, they'll come to us quite often and say, hey, we have an online banking system. Could you help us, right? Test that. And there's this focus on online banking is sensitive. And don't get me wrong, they're right. That's very, very sensitive. Very, very definitely something you want to worry about.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. But they also had a very simple marketing site. Mm-hmm. Same server, right? And it was in scope, but it was in scope because we asked, hey, can we test that site too? Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah, sure. It's on the same server.
Yep. So what we found was that the CMS, the content management system, was vulnerable to a cross-site request forgery. Mm-hmm. Now, in the case of this application, the administrative console for the CMS was not accessible to us. Okay. Whereas if it was, we could have just brute forced an account, logged into the admin console, and got there. But we weren't able to access it directly. But we were able to fingerprint what the CMS was go out and look and find that the CMS is publicly available, right? We can download a free version or a trial version or buy it if we had to, right? Map out what the add content command was, right? What's the request add content? That content addition was vulnerable to CSRF. So we were actually able to launch an attack that, using an active session in an admin's browser, add a shell program, laudanum or something else, right? Of course, we're a little bit biased toward laudanum.
Of course.
I don't know why. And now we have a shell running up on that content management system, which, like I pointed out during the setup, is on the same server as the online banking system. I don't know about you, but I'm excited at this point. This is going? Yeah. I'm giggling a little bit during the test, right? That now lets me run commands on the system. And it's all because an admin had an active session, and they came over to a site we controlled that submitted this shell up to their server, right? That's a problem.
Yeah. So for whoever is thinking that, cross-site request forgery, that's just a client-side thing. It's not really a big deal.
Yeah. Wrong. The other thing we see a lot of people think is that they're like, hey, we're limiting it so it's only internally available, right? The attackers on the internet can't get to this admin console, and that's good, right? It raises the bar. It does make it harder for an attacker to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, the thing is the browser is common ground.
Yes.
The browser can access both the inside and the outside. So if we can attack through the browser, we can get to the inside.
Yeah. And I mean, we were talking about it earlier about one of the ways to do this, and we're not talking about cross-site scripting here, but if we somehow used cross-site scripting in another app or whatever, we can inject a tool called Beef, right? Browser exploitation framework. And Beef would allow us to have control of that browser, and so we could actually make these calls. Like you said earlier, a lot of the plugins in Beef make use of CSRF.
If you've ever played around with Beef before, if you're looking through the list of plugins in there, a large number of them are cross-site request forgery. That's a large portion of the exploits in there. So.
Sorry, I clicked wrong.
I was wondering where you were going.
I'm really not supposed to be touching things. So, and so, we got to think about here is, okay, one, right? Putting that CMS externally available is good, right? That's a good thing. Internally available. I'm
internally,
sorry. Yeah. Did I say externally?
Really? Yeah, you did. Yeah, definitely put your admin console so it's facing the internet. That way we can hack it faster.
Yeah, if you can do me a favor, right before you hire us to do a pen test, make it externally available. Just make our job easier.
Yeah,
right?
Don't do that.
Yeah. So
what we just said, forget it.
Yeah, I was laughing with somebody once, like, what would happen if all the people who do webcasts just gave really bad advice? Like, our job would be easier, but the world would stink.
I don't know. I think it'd get harder.
That's a good point. But, so one, putting it internally available only is a good idea, but you also have options like not having the administrative console accessible through that server, have it accessible on a different server, and then synchronize the backend database potentially, right?
Yeah.
It's going to take more effort to set up and run that way, but that way, if I attack you, that admin console that's there isn't there anymore, right? I have to go figure out. It's raising the bar. Another thing, if you're building these tools like the CMS or whatever, or you're testing a CMS you want to roll out, make sure that that CMS's administrative interface follows all the anti-CSRF techniques that OWASP and everybody else recommends. Tokens, CAPTCHAs, reprompting for passwords before acting on something, right? That's very, very important of what how you should be doing this. Now, we did mention logging, so let's talk about that a little bit, right? One of the things that you would want to look for here is if you've got an administrator that's falling for this type of attack, that we're leveraging their browser to inject this, what you'll notice in the logs, and this does take a little bit more analysis, right? Please don't take my statement as this should be easy for you to do. It will be a little more difficult. But you're going to look for things like an admin firing a transaction without all the stuff in advance. Meaning, if I wanted to add content to a content management system, the normal transactional flow is for me to go log in, go to the dashboard of the CMS admin page, click add content, get the form down that is where I add content. I'm going to fill out that form and then submit it up, right? And at that point, we have the submission. So that has 4 or 5 entries into your logs that say, I asked for this page, I asked for this page, I asked for this page. That's a normal transactional flow.
Right.
In this attack, all you would have seen is a request to submit the content.
And we know there's tools out there for finding this, looking at transactional flows, because marketing uses them all the time, right?
Absolutely. Analytics can be a great way.
And so if you see something that's like, normally it happens, 99% of the time, the flow is a certain way, and then there's one other time, for some reason, it's going a different way. Well, something's up.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Something's different.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent point. Excellent point. So you want to start looking at that kind of stuff, and of course, checking to make sure that you're monitoring what content is out on your system, right? There are fingerprints for the laudanum shell and stuff like that. Making sure content that's in there is
or if
approved.
It's in the wrong language.
Oh, that's a good answer, right? Yes, we won't talk about the web server we were testing that had Chinese shells on it, and neither Gillam nor I speak Chinese or read it.
Well, I had to send it through Google Translate to figure out what it was.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
I was like, okay.
Okay, I'm going to do that now. So yeah, things like that. Another thing to do is, with your content management system, have a workflow to approve the new content. So if I submit the content, Gillam has to publish the content.
Okay. Could
an attacker attack both Gillam and I to do that? Yes. But again, we're raising the bar. Right? The goal here is not to say we've made this 100% secure, because that's, well, we can make something 100% secure. It's just not usable.
Unplug it.
Yeah, unplugged, done, it's off. But we want it to be usable. So we have to be careful with how we do this, but raise the bar, raise the bar, raise the bar. Make sense? All right. Anything else you want to say about this one before we move on to scenario number three? So scenario number 3, an online retailer. Now this one, I'm going to let you do the setup, because
I was there for this one.
Exactly. You're the one who discovered this flaw. Yes. So I'm going to let you run with this one. I'll add color commentary.
Okay, you go ahead. You can add color commentary. All right. So this was a case where we had it was an online retailer, and the application, as a store type of app, there were multiple components to it. So it was actually really more than one application. It was like 2 separate applications. One that had like membership type of information in it, and the other one was the actual store catalog type of information. And at some point, these two had to communicate with each other. They weren't the same application. They weren't running in the same, basically, memory space. So they had to somehow transfer the session state from one to the other and then back again, and so there was this thing happening. And whenever we see this in applications, it always makes me, well, first of all, kind of cringe, because it's like, okay, I know there's got to be a flaw in here, because there's lots of flaws in this type of solution.
Oh yeah. What I always say is technology borders.
Yes, yeah,
right?
That's a good term. Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good term, but we'll go with it now.
We'll go
right?
with that. That makes sense. It paints a visual. There's a border, and as soon as whenever you're crossing over that border, that's when things can go wrong.
And that border could be platform, application, language, right? I tested an application once that had PHP, .NET, and Cold Fusion. It was a lot of fun.
What a mess.
Yeah, basically there were 3 architects in this company, and they didn't like each other. And they just, and the management just let them do what they wanted to do.
Let them do what they wanted to do.
It was awful. Well, as a pen tester, it was awesome.
It was probably great.
Yeah.
So while maintaining the session state, what they ended up doing was they handled it via, it was a combination of cookies and post parameters. And part of that session state actually included, I want to say it was, I'm trying to remember with this one now, but I want to say it actually painted like the navigation and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
in there, and
messages like
and there were so there was actual HTML being stored in state.
Now, of course, it was encoded. Some people would call that encrypted.
It was base 64 encoded, I think, wasn't it? Or was it
I
just
don't
overall
remember.
encoded?
But let's just go with
anyway,
it, right?
It was encoded, so but yeah, not super secret or anything, and definitely something that we decided we could add things to, so that made it kind of fun.
Yeah.
So obviously vulnerable to cross-site scripting at this point because we could put anything we wanted into the HTML, and I believe that in this case here, the way we chose to exploit this was to make it look like the user hadn't quite logged in yet. So reprompt them for their login, and which was pretty easy to do. They were already on the site. It's like, oh, your session timed out.
Yeah, which I mean, that's a normal behavior for
very
applications,
normal
right?
behavior for the application. Just the application's behavior. Only I use JavaScript to make it look that way, and of course they would log back in and
it would send us their credentials.
Yeah, there we go.
And the really nice part about this is the way this application was written, and we pick on this application because it's our scenario. But is that this happens a lot where they put things in post parameters, and then they'll persist that to a cookie, right? And so we were able to actually pop this message at various places in the transactional flow across both applications, because that attack, while it was a reflected attack, right? We sent a link, they clicked the link, it reflected it back at them, right? Once they reflected it, it was then persistent across the board and could be pulled multiple times, right? So it was really, really fun.
It was.
That was a good one. And that kind of stuff, and this again, we talk about cross-site scripting. We mentioned it during cross-site request forgery, that a lot of people are like, well, that's client side. We're not worried about client side. It's not our issue. Well, yeah, it is.
It's just an alert pop-up box, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, great pop-up box. I'm so scared. But it's not just a great pop-up box, right? Where we're prompting them, and we could have used beef here as well.
We could have, yeah.
Right? Inject a beef hook to persist control of that browser, and then pivot through that. We could have done a lot worse with pulling content out of the site during that active session, or firing other transactions as that user. Because remember, when we talk at the previous scenario, that one of the solutions to cross-site request forgery, almost like cross-site scripting, is a token, right? Some type of anti-CSRF token. If you have cross-site scripting in your app, that cross-site scripting code can read the token. Mm-hmm. So it defeats almost all cross-site request forgery protections, right? So
all tokens, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could even defeat password requests, right? Since it can ask them for their password itself and then submit it.
This is true.
Right? And I've seen some really cool cross-site scripting attacks. I have not pulled one off myself, but where it will actually prompt for like the reCAPTCHA. So it'll display the CAPTCHA to the user and then go forward. Or of course, there's that old style where it would display the CAPTCHAs to a porn site, and people browsing the porn sites would answer the CAPTCHAs, and then the attacker's tool will use the CAPTCHA. I guess that's a different.
It's a different way to do it.
Yeah. We're professionally evil, not
cyber evil.
Nakedly evil. I'm not sure. We'll move on from that.
Yeah, you're getting into really scary area now.
Yeah. So we don't hack naked, no. But solution, right? Right off the bat, any of your cross-site scripting protections, right? Filter input, encode output.
Definitely.
Working with a WAF to help with that,
mm-hmm.
right? Like as a temporary solution. I mean, obviously you want your application.
Just an extra layer of.
Yeah, part of the onion.
It's another control, yeah.
And of course, like in this case, right, one of the biggest problems here was that it was pushing session state client side.
Right.
And it was trusting as it did that handoff across that technology border.
Yeah, I was going to say there's two problems with that. One is just you should never put your session state on the client side anyway. It should just be, we know it should just be a randomized token. But the other one is that transferring the state across sites, really it's hard to do that right. You really have to think that through when you're architecting those types of solutions. Usually the best options involve some kind of handoff that happens between the servers and actually doesn't come through the client.
Yep. I mean, OAuth comes to mind as
Exactly.
a standardized way to do authentication across multiple systems.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, some type of, and I'm not saying OAuth is the best one. I actually, if I was defending my stuff, I think it's the one I would use, right? But
it's a good option.
Yeah,
it's proven. Yeah.
I've seen where people build into their authentication system basically an API where the other applications can just make a call and say, hey, is this dude logged in? Give me a session state. And and it's done that way server side. That's a little custom.
Sure. It's better than doing the client side handoff.
Yep. And then the other option is like using a single sign-on solution other than OAuth. Like when I was at Blue Cross, we were running SiteMinder.
Right.
And SiteMinder had an agent that would run on the web servers.
Very common for enterprises to use something like that, and that works. And I mean, the handoff at that point, it's not happening just on the client side. It is happening between the agents and the SiteMinder server. So that allows that to happen again behind the scenes. So in a much more secure fashion.
Yep. So I think that
I don't really have anything else to say about that one.
We can make up some more stuff if
you like. It was fun.
It was a fun attack. That one was fun.
Well, a lot of them are fun, but this one was particularly fun because it was a little odd. It was so odd the way that it was put. I've seen other like similar type scenarios before, but this one, because there was so much information. In those post parameters, like entire HTML chunks.
I mean, what it reminded me of is damn vulnerable web apps cross-site scripting flaw where they have the error message as a post parameter. And
I've seen that sort of thing before too.
Yeah.
I wish if I can keep talking about that one.
And I'm going to say that let's be very clear. If we're sitting here talking about a vulnerability in your app, and our example thing that it looks like comes from a application called Damn Vulnerable Web App, your developers made a mistake.
Yes.
It's just like, hey, what's the most similar app? Oh, DVWA.
DVWA, yeah, right? Let's use that.
Oh, no, that's not a good thing. It's kind of like years ago, I was doing a head end for the smart grid testing, and I found so many vulnerabilities that I did a status call with the vendor, and I said, hey, can I get one of your head-end devices to bring around to my classes? And the guy on the phone said, why? Because we're doing so well in the pen test that you want to show people how great we are? I'm like, no, you've implemented every vulnerability I teach. So it would just be one device we could use for the entire class. It's awesome. They
didn't give you one.
They didn't talk very nicely to me after that. So nobody said I was a nice
people
person.
Just don't get it.
No, I was a compliment. Your app is so vulnerable. I haven't seen something this bad before.
That's a great example.
Yeah. So let's talk about scenario number 4. Our last scenario. Oh man, our application failed. I feel like we should have embedded a fail army video somewhere in this talk. That's okay.
That would have spiced it up a little bit.
I don't know. Maybe. So now the next one, and this is one that I find that we have this conversation a lot with people. So this was a government support organization. I don't think that's an official title, but basically they weren't a government agency, but they did a lot of work with governments, and it was you basically was able to do transactions. You're able to purchase stuff with the government, buy stuff, sell stuff, things like that. And they ran Ruby on Rails. Oh, Ruby on Rails, right?
That's secure.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, that was the developer's answer to me, right? Like, the platform handles the security, right? There's nothing we have to worry about here. Well, not quite true, right? We see this quite often where a developer, they're really trying to be secure. They're trying to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And they've gone out, they've done some research, they found a platform, and we're not just picking on Ruby on Rails here, right? Drupal comes to mind. I just had a conversation yesterday with somebody about Drupal.
Yeah.
We could do this all day with different platforms.
Drupal's better than WordPress, right?
For the pen tester. But So, but so often we see this, like, oh, security's handled there. I don't have to worry about it. And the minute you say,
I don't have to worry about it.
worry, just plain and simple.
Yeah.
So in this case, the application had lots of input from the user. Of course, right? You're submitting what you want to buy, sell, whatever, and the platform provided SQL injection protection, right?
Uh-huh.
Plain and simple. The reality, though, is that was simple SQL injection protection. It was not very robust. As a matter of fact, it was vulnerable. There's a site called rails-sequeli.org. I want to say is the URL. If you go to that URL and it's a porn site, that's not the right URL. But it's like rails-sequeli or yeah, that's it. And it actually outlines all of these issues. Gillam's going to it right now to make sure. I'm going to laugh my butt off if that has loud playing inappropriate music. But that auto plays. Yep, that's it. So I was right. It's rails-sequeli.org. And so there are a number of issues where it's not as simple as putting tick or 1 = 1 semicolon dash dash, right? You have to change your payload to make the work within the active record system, but you're actually able to do simple SQL injections, and you're able to pull data, you're able to authenticate as somebody, you're able to really compromise this system. And we were able to show them this and say, hey, look, see, here's the problems. And even when we showed it to them, one of the answers we still got was, and we do this all the time, right? Oh, but no, the platform's supposed to, what are you doing that makes the platform not, like, no, you obviously are misunderstanding the protections being offered. You don't understand the strengths and weaknesses, right? You can't just say the platform's got it. Now,
Yeah.
we're talking Ruby on Rails here, but what about struts, right? Struts itself, the platform, has been vulnerable to command execution 2 or 3 times. Didn't matter what your application. Yeah, we know it. Exactly. Good answer. Right? Like the platform was vulnerable to attack. So if you're not handling input safely, if you're not doing those protections yourself anyways, right, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You're going to have these issues. This is in my mind, this is the same as I have a web app firewall in front of my application.
Yeah.
Right?
There is no silver bullet with security. I mean, that's
exactly.
That's what it comes down to. You do have to pay attention to it no matter what. Make sure you understand how the controls work and that you implement them correctly and that they're using them right. So.
Which one of the things that we find is, as we said at the very beginning, you have to understand what the attacks are.
Yeah.
If you don't truly understand, like we've talked about a number of attacks here, if you don't truly understand what those attacks do, how they work, right? One of the things I ask every single time I present to a group of developers, heck, I ask it when I present to anybody, but when I present to a group of developers, I always say, how many of you have actually done a SQL injection attack? How many of you have actually done a cross-site scripting attack, right? How many, because I'm a firm believer that if you haven't done the attack, the likelihood that you understand how that attack really works
well enough to defend against it
exactly is unlikely.
Yeah.
So you've got to go in there and double check this stuff. You've got to test for these things. And I'll tell you, as pen testers, you have to understand the platforms. We also have to understand the strengths and weaknesses, because I've seen way too many Ruby on Rails apps, Struts apps. Cold Fusion is another one. My goodness, I can't believe how many
Cold
times.
Fusion is just inherently bad.
Oh man!
I don't like to bash on the technology,
but that one we can bash on, right? I'm amazed by how many times you'll see a pen test report from an organization, and they don't even catch the platform flaws, right? Because the pen tester just kind of we're not talking about the pen test puppy mills, right? That I ran Nessus against your server. That's a pen test, right? But they just miss it because they don't understand what that platform's doing. They don't understand. It's one of the things I love about having Gillam on staff, right? We ask Gillam quite often, hey, what do you think about this? What is this application doing here? Because he's got a really good background on that kind of stuff. So anything else on this one? This was pretty simple.
Well, one thing I would point out, because I don't want anybody listening to this thinking, okay, well, in this case, I shouldn't develop on Ruby on Rails because in the experience, my experience with web pen testing, various different apps on various different platforms, Ruby on Rails apps do tend to be one of the hardest to pen test because they do have, as a platform, there are a lot of controls that were part of the platform from the beginning.
Yep, I agree.
And that's different from some other older platforms where that wasn't the case. So there's a lot more sort of bolted on security in other ones, and Ruby on Rails does a pretty good job of at least having the controls there. It's just a matter of learning how to use them correctly.
Yeah.
So I do want to point that out.
Yeah, absolutely right.
And I'm saying this from somebody who really doesn't like Ruby on Rails. So.
See, I don't think that's true. I don't think you can say that you don't really like Ruby on Rails. I think you can say you hate Ruby on Rails.
Yeah, that's probably more accurate. And I don't even know why, really.
Well, I know why I do. Why I hate Ruby. And it really is unfair to the language.
Yeah, let's see if it's the same.
Yeah. I hate dealing with Ruby on a platform where I have to support multiple Ruby applications.
You have the wrong version of that gem installed.
Exactly. Right? And this comes from building out Samurai, because Gillam is one of the guys that helps with maintaining Samurai.
It is. It's not Ruby. It's just this thing with the gems.
Yeah. Because we'll have Beef and we'll have Metasploit on the Samurai server.
Yeah.
And
sometimes a few other things too.
Cool pops. I forgot about Cool. And trying to maintain, like, this one supports this version, but this other one requires this other version. That's why I hate Ruby. It really isn't fair to the language. But, geez. Funny part is I dated a girl named Ruby. But,
I don't know how that's related.
Because I felt bad saying I hated Ruby. And in my mind it went, like, I didn't hate her. But, so... That was an odd tangent. Let's just move on. So, but cool. At that point, I'd say, thank you. And I'm going to open it up for questions. We got a few more minutes. We actually ran a little bit faster than I thought we would.
Yeah, that's probably my fault.
No. So, if there's any questions.
I don't tell as many stories as you do. See, I need to get more stories in the middle of my.
Okay, so the question is, with HTTP2 being live, the majority of WAFs and gateways not supporting it yet, what are your thoughts regarding the security impact with this protocol?
That's a great question.
It is, actually. So the biggest impact I see is exactly what you said. The majority of our monitoring and logging and our security tools don't really understand the protocol, and so they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah, they just haven't caught up.
Yeah, but I will also say, I can't think of a single application that we've tested that we couldn't downgrade to HTTP 1.1 and have the application work fine.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've not yet tested an app that only supported HTTP 2. So for us, from a pen testing perspective, we just downgrade and we test it anyways. But that doesn't work for your WAFs and whatever because they're not controlling that downgrade. It really is something that the vendors have to get out there and deal with. Excellent question. Excellent question. I just don't have a good answer for you. Any other questions?
Anything at all?
Bueller. No, I had to say it. Okay, well, in that case, what I would say is, let's say thank you very much to everybody. We are going to be, hopefully, since I forgot to hit record, Donna's recording worked, and if it did, we'll be uploading that to YouTube later on today or tomorrow. We want to say thank you very much, and if you need anything, reach out to us, Jason G at securityideas.com or Kevin at securityideas.com, and thank you very much.